Hello everyone and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, where every headline has a story, every policy has a purpose and every issue has an UPSC angle. So over the next few minutes we will connect all the three so that you are not only following the news but actually understanding it like a future civil servant. It's July 14, 2026 and in today's Mains 2026 segment we begin with India-Australia Uranium Agreement, a partnership that goes beyond energy to touch upon strategic trust, clean energy security and India's long-term nuclear ambitions. Next, we shift our focus to securing India's border states, exploring why border regions are not only country's first line of defense, but also are gateways for connectivity, trade, development, and national integration. Next, to help you write better answers, we also bring you mains value addition materials from today's current affairs, packed with reports, recommendations, examples, case studies, and data points. And finally, we will wrap up the discussion with prelims pointers, which will be highly crucial for your upcoming 2027 prelims examination. So let's begin. So guys, welcome back to Analyst. Now in this very first article, we have a very major development when we talk about India's nuclear sector, because the main context of the news is that India and Australia has finalized the administrative arrangement required to enable the export of uranium from Australia to India. Now this is actually in the context of the recent visit of our Prime Minister. Also, there is another article in the Hindu, in the editorial page, that what should be our path towards nuclear power development in the country. So from the broader perspective of India and Australia relations and also from the GS3 perspective of energy security, nuclear energy and India's nuclear program, let us start the topic by firstly looking at the very big picture that India has set for herself. We have already understood that in various government meetings, conferences, the government of India clearly outlines that by 2047, we have to become Viksit Bharat, that is a developed economy, where right now we are focusing on various government schemes such as Make in India, PLI, so that we have a major manufacturing hub in the country, so that we attract the various manufacturing of electronics, iPhones from China to India, right? That is also happening right now. Also, we are talking about attracting investments in the artificial intelligence sector, wherein we are setting up more AI data centers. One of them has been recently set up in Noida also. On the other hand, look at the Ahmedabad-Mumbai bullet train and the various other railway transit systems we are actually operating across the country. That is also another transition that we are trying to do towards electrified railway systems. Now, when we talk about electrical transportation system, why we are leaving the electronic vehicles aside? Because here we have Delhi with its own EV policy. We have the Prime Minister's e-drive initiative, which is trying to promote the manufacturing of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and even trucks and ambulances which run on EV batteries. Also, India is witnessing that the global supply chain is rapidly being disrupted due to global geopolitical shocks. That is why we are also setting up the semiconductor plants in the country. Also, in the past few years, we have seen that what the importance of critical minerals are for the development of electronics and even AI in general, so that we are actually setting up more semiconductor factories. One of those factories have been recently set up in Assam, Odisha and other Indian states. So what we are witnessing is that India has set a very ambitious target for herself. And that is why, to fuel all of these things, we have to maintain the demand for electricity, right? One thing which is common in all of them is that over a period of time, the demand for electricity is only going to go up. Now, come from 2047 to 2026, where we see that over a period of time, our installed renewable capacity is rapidly increasing. If you look at the last 10 years now, you will see that we have spent a lot of money, especially when we look at some Indian states, such as Gujarat, which is leading in renewable energy with many solar parks, where the state of Rajasthan also comes next, where, for example, the state of Tamil Nadu comes one of the first states to focus a lot on wind energy, where we have the various Himalayan states which is focusing a lot on the hydropower. Also in the Western Ghats, we have seen the increasing investments in the hydropower plant. The same is happening in our Indian Northeast region. So we see that the energy distribution in the country is gradually shifting from coal-based energy, fossil fuel-based energy to renewable energy. So we know that obviously we have to reduce the reliance on coal-based thermal power plants. right? So this is where we understand that going forward, we have to diversify our energy needs. But you know, guys, there is one problem with most of the energy systems. Now, there are three parameters which is known as energy trilemma. This means that there are hardly any energy source or renewable energy source which are completely reliable. For example, what reliability means that, consider the case of solar energy. When we talk about solar energy we can generate during the daytime, but can we generate solar energy during nighttime or during the rainy seasons? No, right? So it is not always reliable, right? Solar energy is not always reliable. The same case is with wind energy. Mostly the coastal states in India have higher wind potential when we talk about energy generation. What about the other inland states such as Madhya Pradesh and various other Indian states, right? Also, when we talk about coal, we know that coal is not at all clean, right? And when we look at the affordability factor right now, coal energy, solar energy, wind energies are all affordable. That's fine. And even when we talk about the solar energy, right now, India produces solar energy at $35 per megawatt hour, which is quite affordable and actually the most affordable solar energy destination in the entire world. Even we are cheaper than China, US, and various other countries which are heavily focusing on solar energy development. Now, where is the problem? The problem is that not all of these sources and even hydropower fulfill all of these criteria, that is reliability, affordability, and cleanliness. There is only one energy, that is a nuclear energy, which fulfills all of them. Now you will tell me, okay, nuclear energy is reliable. It operates 24/7. Nuclear plants hardly shut down. Okay. Also, it is highly clean because in the process it hardly generates any carbon dioxide, and that is why nuclear energy do not contribute to global warming also. One fact is that when we talk about nuclear energy, it is actually taking a lot of investment to set it up. And when we set it up now, to run the plant, it takes minimum investment. And that is when it also becomes highly affordable. Because look at the developed countries like US, Europe. So they have actually did high amount of investments in their nuclear energy, civil and nuclear energy plants. And that is where they are getting affordable energy from. So there is only one energy which can actually give us all of these three parameters, because we have set ambitious targets for ourselves. For example, that India is part of the Paris Agreement, which is a global agreement which is fighting climate change. Now, under the Paris Agreement, all of the countries which are signatory to it have to come up with their own national goals. So for us, we have set the national goals. Right now, the target is 2035, that we should be reducing our emissions to GDP by 47% from 2005 level. So in 2005, if we are polluting, say 100, we have to reduce it by minus 47. And this is actually where we are reducing most of the polluting industries and the pollutions and so on. Now, also, there is another target that 60% installed electricity power should come from non-fossil fuel energy sources, and that is why we have to focus on nuclear energy and not only solar and wind and hydropower. And this is exactly why India is talking about the solar energy mission, green hydrogen mission, which is actually also running on renewable energies and nuclear energy. Also, we are focusing on wind energy, biofuel. We have also seen why biofuel has been in the news for a lot of time. And finally, we are talking about nuclear energy expansion, a sector which was not quite prominently focused on for decades, and a sector which India is right now focusing a lot to meet our own energy requirement, because we have just realized that nuclear energy, while it requires a lot of investment to set up, it will be in the future solving most of our needs. And here, that is why Australia comes to picture, because when we look into the uranium reserves by country in the entire world, we see Australia is having more than 25% of the global uranium resources, which is also one of the reasons why they are the highest uranium exporters in the world. When it comes to the amount of uranium production, they come behind Kazakhstan, Canada, and Namibia. Now, these three countries are also the countries, if you can see in the map, which also have huge amount of uranium resources, right? Now, this development where we are having an agreement with Australia is something that is not is new, right? And that is why we have to understand what was the real issue, because India and Australia, signed an agreement in 2014 about the uranium export deal and the nuclear program between India and Australia. But why it took more than 12 years right now? Because there are some angles firstly we have to talk about. Firstly, it is a non-proliferation treaty, the IAEA safeguards and the NSG. Now let us talk about these things in the context of evolution of India's nuclear diplomacy, and that is exactly where you can understand why this commercial uranium export deal from Australia has been finalized. Now all of these things are highly crucial for your mains examination, guys, because this is giving you a comprehensive background to write your answers in a very highly organized way. So the story starts from 1974 when India conducted its first nuclear test known as Smiling Buddha, right? Because as of before, we have seen that India already had fought wars with China and Pakistan, and individually they were also focusing on their own nuclear programs. And since our neighbors who were hostile and still are hostile, and if they are having or trying to have nuclear weapons, why will India leave behind? But even way back, if we go to the 1945, where we had the Hiroshima bomb, so back then the world was very afraid of nuclear weapons. So mainly USSR and various other developed countries, they thought about restricting the nuclear race. They thought about restricting the control of nuclear weapons coming into hands of Pakistan and India. And that is why they were very angry with us conducting the Smiling Buddha test at Pokhran, which is also known as Pokhran 1. So a 48-member exclusive club known as Nuclear Suppliers Group was formed, where India was not part of. And this group was actually led by those developed countries to control the supply of nuclear weapons, uranium supply, nuclear power plants, raw materials, and all of those supplies. So basically it means that back then, if you want to have your nuclear program as a country, you need to go to NSG and seek permission and do all those kind of obligations. Now, India would not hold back, because after a period of time we have seen how there have been more conflicts. So that is why we went ahead with Operation Shakti, our second Pokhran mission, where we also conducted various nuclear testing and various ambitions there. Now after this, the world went angry on India. It imposed various sanctions. Countries such as US, Japan and others, they imposed sanctions, and that is where India was seen in a very negative stage. But over a period of time, when the administration in the US changed, the president in the US changed, in 2005, we signed a deal with the US. Because since 1974, when India became a nuclear state, India always have been a responsible nuclear state. Right? We never used to flaunt our nuclear weapons. We never used to excessively have nuclear enrichment. So that is where we talked about signing a deal with the US. Now, here, India is not part of the non-proliferation treaty, which actually bans various countries from developing nuclear weapons. India is not part of that. India is not part of the NSG, right? So here in this US-India nuclear deal, an exemption was given to us. That okay, for peaceful purposes, we have to separate our civilian nuclear facilities and military nuclear facilities. The civilian nuclear facilities came under the IAEA safeguard. Now, IAEA is the atomic watchdog of the world. So they have their inspectors, they have their various technology to monitor what is the level of nuclear energy and the nuclear weapon scenario in the country. So if they would spot anything, they can send their inspectors to our country and inspect our nuclear plants. The same they were trying to do in Iran recently, right? Also, in 2008, we also got the waiver that the nuclear supply group had restricted on India for a lot of time. So we have just seen from 2005 to 2008, India actually got a lot of relaxations from the entire world to carry on our nuclear program. And mostly from then onwards, India started focusing heavily on nuclear energy in the energy sector. So various countries such as France, Japan actually signed various agreements with us in 2014. As we have already seen, Australia also did the same. But you know, from 2014 till 2026, 12 years have passed. Why? There was a lot of issue. You know, for example, imagine a wedding scenario in your family. Now the bride and groom have agreed with each other that they will marry. But you know, there is a long period of waiting. Why? Because the parents would not agree. The parents have their own reason, for example, right? Now, after some level of talks and all those things, the parents finally agreed on who will be the caterer, who will be the various suppliers in the material of the weddings and everything, right? So this is exactly what happened in between. Now let us understand what happened. In India, you know, we had an act known as a civil liability for nuclear damage. To understand this, imagine a nuclear power plant like this. Now, nuclear power plant has two aspects. Firstly, the operational aspect. Secondly, the supplier aspect. Now, nuclear operational aspect means that all those people and the companies and those authorities who are involved in the daily functioning of the nuclear power plant. Also, when we talk about the suppliers, who are the suppliers? The uranium supplier, the raw material supplier, the raw parts of the nuclear power plant machinery, right? So these are the suppliers. Now, in case of any unfortunate nuclear accident, such as the Chernobyl disaster, so who will be liable in this entire scenario? For example, in Chernobyl, we have seen how the nuclear operators themselves were very careless, right? So in this case, can we blame the suppliers? No, right? But our law actually put the responsibility of any major nuclear disaster both on operators and the suppliers. So this means that if India and Australia signed a nuclear cooperation agreement in 2014, now the private companies in Australia, they were highly concerned that they have the nuclear technology, but they won't bring the technology in India, or they won't supply even raw materials such as uranium, that is a basic raw material, to India. Why? Because in case of any unfortunate event, they also will be blamed, right? So this is why we came up with the 2025 Shanti Act, which was also covered extensively in the Analyst, in which we tried to do privatization in the nuclear power plants and fix the liability on mainly the operators, and we are right now trying to exempt the suppliers from any kind of liability. So this is finally why this administrative arrangement was finalized, and right now it is only one of the countries with which we have some agreement, and in the future we will have more agreements with more countries such as Kazakhstan and others to have commercial uranium exports into India. And this is exactly what has changed in 2026, because the treaty already existed. And right now, the administrative arrangement is just the operating manual, the various details. Firstly, let us understand what will happen. Uranium deal has been secured, that Australia will be supplying uranium for peaceful purposes to India, for example, for energy purposes, for energy security purposes, right? And mainly why India wants the same, because over a period of time we have seen how our energy demand will increase due to data centers, AI, semiconductor plants, green hydrogen. Even in the Panchamrit mission, we want to go green, totally carbon neutral by 2070. In the comments, you let me know what are the other targets here. And also, we have seen how the Russia-Ukraine crisis is already there. The Israel issue is there. The Iran conflict is already ongoing. And you know, these things disrupt the global supply chain. And this is exactly why uranium deal has been secured. Now, from Australian perspective, 500 million Australian dollars will be injected in the country, in our Indian National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, right? This is another fund which is talking about improving India's infrastructure as a whole. And this is where we also will be supplied with critical minerals which will strengthen the next generational clean energy and industrial supply chain. And finally, it will be boosting our Indian nuclear aspirations. And for Australia, it will get access to India as one of its greatest and biggest export markets. It will also compete with China, because China is also doing the same. And finally, it will also focus on building an India and Australia Indo-Pacific supply chain of nuclear energy and critical minerals, as we have already seen. So this is a broader critical mineral based nuclear energy based strategic partnership which we are trying to capitalize. But there is one question, guys. In India, guys, we have the highest thorium reserves in the entire world. So why we are trying to import uranium from Australia in this respect? Because firstly, we have to talk about India's 3-stage nuclear program. We are already in the second stage right now, by the way. So this 3-stage means that since India has a lot of thorium reserves which can be used in nuclear energy generation, what we are trying to do is having a stage-wise nuclear energy generation. For example, in the first stage, here we will be using something which we know as pressurized heavy water reactor. For example, in Kudankulam, we have the same technology, where we use what? We use uranium fuel, and the output we get is plutonium, where finally it will be generating energy and the byproduct of plutonium. So in the second phase, what we will do? We will inject plutonium and uranium, right? And we will also get the output of plutonium and uranium. And finally, when we get to this stage, finally, we will get the thorium based reactors, which are advanced reactors in which we will be using our thorium. So in this entire process, can we see that we need a lot of uranium in the first stage, in the second stage, and even in the third stage, guys. So that is why we need Australia's help, because simply Australia has a large uranium reserve and it is also a very friendly country for us. And this is where we understand that nuclear cooperation is important. That has to be done. But you know what also has to be done is something that is known as Atmanirbharta, right? Because guys, we have a nuclear target that is generating 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047, where we will be focusing more on the small modular reactors, which are small reactors which can be easily set up, right? And this is where we are having a target of investing 20,000 crores here, because from the COP26 climate commitments, we have the various energy requirements that should come from renewable energy sector and non-fossil fuel energy sources, right? So here we cannot rely on Australia and various other countries for a long period of time, because we have to understand, for India to become a truly developed country by 2047, we cannot always depend on critical technologies from abroad. Because when we talk about buying nuclear supplies, raw materials, nuclear power plants, machinery, buying from countries such as US, France, Australia, these are easy because they are faster, less risky initially, but we become dependent on them over a period of time. We also spend a lot of money on them, and particularly if there are some crises such as the Iran crisis which is happening, the supply chain will become disrupted. On the other hand, if we build the technology on ourselves, it will be slow, definitely. It will be expensive initially, definitely. But over a long period of time, we will be having strategic autonomy. We will be taking our own decisions in the nuclear energy sector. Because tomorrow, we do not know. The friendly countries right now can become hostile, right? Also, we have to look for our domestic industries. And finally, God knows, if we become an expert in the nuclear energy sector, we can also export the same, just like the missiles that we are doing right now to Indonesia, to the Gulf countries and so on. Because there is a very important quote, which is also cited in the article, that necessity is the mother of invention. Remember those Pokhran 1, Pokhran 2 tests? Back then, where did we get the uranium from? Where did we get the nuclear power plants material from? Our own Indian scientists, they developed them from scratch. And even right now, most of the nuclear reactors that we have, all of them have been actually be developed by those Indian scientists only, right? So this means that earlier we had sanctions on us. So no one would supply nuclear materials to us. But in those sanctions, we thrived. We did innovation. We did a lot of invention. We did a lot of cost cutting and various other ambitions. And the same model has been applied by ISRO, by DRDO. So why not following their model also? While also partnering with the other countries. Because when we talk about still now, as of now, the cost of nuclear energy generation, right? India is actually the cheapest compared to even South Korea, France and US. Just imagine this thing. So firstly, we need to transfer the technology from the government to the private sector right now. Right now, we have the Shanti Act, which is enabling that. So we need more investments in their aspects. So we need to scale the nuclear power. We have to invest in the future technologies of nuclear energy, such as small modular reactors, right? And finally, we need to be open to international collaboration so that better technologies come up in the future. So we have come to the end of this topic. Attempt this question and move on to the next one, where we will be mainly discussing the broader outcomes of the Land Border District SPs Conference of 2026, where this is the first ever conference of police chiefs from districts sharing land borders with our neighboring countries. So the main context is that what truly secures a country's borders? Is it merely fences and soldiers, or it is also about the people, technology, and governance and development in the border areas? So from internal security perspective, for your GS means of GS paper 3, let us start the topic. Firstly, understand why this news is important. Because in this Land Border District SP Conference 2026, where maybe one of you will be present in the future also after cracking the exam and becoming IPS officers and administrators, all of you will be sitting with our Home Minister and various other secretaries of the Government of India to talk about the broader border security infrastructure and the status of our country. Where in this meeting, it is very surprising that the SPs of around 119 border districts actually attended the meeting. And it is very rare, for the Home Minister to talk directly with the SPs. But it happened. Why? Because right now, we are seeing a whole of government approach when it comes to border security. Earlier, you used to know the border security was mainly left to the BSF. But right now, we involve the village panchayats, the district officials, the gram panchayat officials, even when we talk about the revenue officials, the local police stations, even the SPs. We are right now talking about an integrated whole of government approach, because the status of our Indian borders is actually quite serious right now. Now, when we look into our India's international border, so when we talk about the border that we have with Pakistan and China, they are actually hostile and disputed. So we still are not agreeing to the present day borders that are demarcated, right? Also, on the other hand, we have terrorism, drone infiltration, military standoffs which took place between China and India also recently. Also, when we come to Bangladesh, we see that how this Bangladesh-India border is extremely porous. The same is case with Nepal and Myanmar. That means that the border regions are not totally fenced properly, right? Sometimes we do not even have the security personnel on those borders, because mainly there are deep ravines, rivers, mountains, forests in these border regions. Now that is why all this illegal migration happens: cattle smuggling, fake currency, human trafficking, drug trafficking, infiltration, movement of terrorists from those parts. So these things are happening. And it is only with Bhutan we can confidently say maybe that we have zero border issues, right? So this is where we have to understand that there are various issues at various parts of our border. For your mains, it is highly important that you write answers in this structured way, because we have to show that India's border management and the solutions for that cannot have a one solution or say one size fits all approach. So we need to talk about right now those issues which were discussed in the meeting. Firstly, come to the aspect of drones. Right now, drones are becoming the new smuggler. Why? Because they do illegal smuggling by attaching drugs and various other illegal smartphones there and dropping them across into our border. On the other hand, drones are also used for attacks on specific individuals such as our armed forces too, by Pakistan and China also. They also carry out espionage. Pakistani agents, they actually operate the drones from across the border and they send here to do spying. Also, they have some harming intentions such as colliding with helicopters and Indian airlines. So this means that drones are becoming highly dangerous. From weapons to heroines to synthetic drugs, fake currency, communication devices, explosives, they are being used. And if you can see right now, they are using satellite-based drones to drop drugs, right? And this is what is also being seen in Punjab. So this is why this conference, this meeting is suggesting that we need more counter unmanned aircraft devices, policy. So this means that firstly, we need more drone forensic labs. Those drones which are being captured, we need to properly dismantle them, study their circuit board, and actually reveal the identity in the entire world that these are actually coming from these countries. Also, right now we need more AI based tracking and radar integration. Now these are actually steps which the government of India is already taking via the national anti-drone guidelines. In this national anti-drone guidelines, we have three systems. So these three systems are protecting three crucial technologies in the country and infrastructure in the country. Firstly, we are regulating those drones which come near our armed forces or airports, right? Then we have other infrastructure such as hospitals and most important critical services such as telecom towers and various other infrastructure. Then we have Indian Army Saksham and directed energy weapons which actually use various radars, various radio frequency jammers, scanners, cameras to actually fry and burn the motherboards of the drones which are incoming. So this is the technology which we are using. Also, recently the government of India launched this digital sky platform which is trying to detect the drones on an electronic platform using data analytics and artificial intelligence. So if there is a question on drone prevention and the counter drone policies, this entire slide is there to help you write that answer. And now the next issue is all about encrypted apps, because even recently I've seen the mention of the WhatsApp group named as Lawrence Bishnoi 007, where you have seen how these many people have been caught for operating various anti-national activities, where in the recent times it has also been come out that various solar powered hidden cameras were operating inside our country which was spying our borders. So all of them were possible because of this encrypted app. These apps actually use this technology that is known as end-to-end encryption that you can also see on your WhatsApp. So whenever we send text to our friends, WhatsApp does what? It locks the text when you send them, and when it actually goes to your friend's mobile, it unlocks them. So this means that earlier telephone tapping was very easy to do, but right now end-to-end encryption means that it is extremely difficult to decode. So this is also what we have seen being seen in various apps such as Threema, WhatsApp, Screed, and even Zangi. So these were also mentioned in the conference which took place by the SPs. Now one big issue is about illegal migration. And the conference actually discussed as to why does illegal migration become a national security issue? Because of various dimensions, if you can see. Security dimensions, political, economic, social, and humanitarian. So firstly, when we talk about the security dimension, many illegal migrants are coming up with fake voter ID cards, fake Aadhaar cards, and all those fake documents. And they are operating as sleeper cells in the country, which are doing organized crime, drug trafficking, and also spreading the same to other networks. Also, when we talk about the political issue, whenever we have this fake identity, this cause various issues with our electoral rolls that we have also seen during the recent SIR exercise. Even in the recently held West Bengal Assembly elections, we have seen how this was a very big issue regarding citizenship, voter rights, where many people were actually cut out from the voter list, right? Because of this becoming a national security issue. And sometimes based on these kind of political issues, sometimes these become communal issues too. Now come to the economy aspect. Whenever we have huge illegal migrants coming in our country, we see that our hospitals are overburdened, schools are overburdened, welfare activities, even job markets are overburdened. Unemployment becomes high because the illegal migrants, they take up all those things. On the other hand, when we talk about the social fabric is also hurt sometimes due to the various demographic changes which are actually alleged by the present ruling government, which is happening across the, various border states, which is leading to more communal tensions and competition over local resources, causing unrest, riots, violence. And finally, we cannot always blame the illegal migrants, because sometimes migrants such as Rohingyas, they also come to our country to actually escape violence, persecution. Sometimes migrants can also come due to climate change and climate disasters, due to extreme poverty in their home country, right? So this is where we have seen across the years, from a Supreme Court judgment to various reports by various authorities, they have all highlighted that these illegal migrants are actually a serious issue. Now, all of these things are very important for you to cite in your answers. Now, come to another issue, which is a very hidden issue in my opinion. Why? Because we all are living in our towns, villages in mainland India, right? We hardly know what goes on in the first civilian line defense areas, which we know as border villages. These are also known as the last villages of India. When you go to any tourism sector, mainly in Kashmir, in Sikkim, or in Northeast India, you will see that this is the last village of India. What does that mean? That means it is the last village of India which is bordering the next country. Now, the condition, the economic condition in this border area is actually very, very bad. And that is, why most of the youths there become radicalized. That is why the terrorist organization can easily operate, because they also give various funding to the local youth to participate in their anti-national activities. And that is why, if you see right now, many Indian states such as Arunachal Pradesh, West Bengal, Nagaland, they are actually carrying out various programs. One of the most important program by the central government is known as a Vibrant Village program. The main objective here is to reverse the migration that happens in the border areas. So this is actually a program which was launched in 2022-23 and is having an allocation of 4,800 crores, operating in 4 states and 1 union territories in the Northland border. So here what is happening? We are spending more money to build better roads, spread internet, tourism, livelihoods, healthcare, schools, border tourism. Even if you have seen in the recent times, Assam Rifles have signed a memorandum of agreement to strengthen the supply of milk and milk product through dairy cooperatives in the various border areas of our country, so that the local youth, they can carry on their animal husbandry activities, so that they can actually produce milk, and those milk will be supplied to the military cantonments, where the Assam Rifles, the BSF and all those cantonments, the milk will be supplied, and in return what will happen? 2 benefits. Firstly, Assam Rifles will be getting milk for their own daily purposes, right? Secondly, the most important thing, economic livelihood will be given to the local people. So this is actually a very, very good program. So this was one initiative that the government of India has taken to actually focus on holistic whole of government approach in the border areas. Now, what about the other programs? What are the other initiatives for border management? This is what we have: the smart border and comprehensive integrated border management system, where we are not only, for example, looking at this black border as a land border, we are also looking at this border as a heavily technologically scanned and oriented and surveilled border, where we are using various command centers, unmanned aerial surveillance, maybe using drones, helicopters, right? We are also using various mobile data terminals. So mainly what we are doing, we are using technology, high-tech border technology. So this is where we are actually trying to have smart fencing. So gone are the days when fence was actually made of steel and iron. Right now, it is steel and iron plus technology, right? Also, if you have seen right now, we are also having a project known as Project Sevak, which is where we are trying to fence the Indo-Myanmar border in the same region. Also, the land port management system was recently launched, where this is known as Vinimay. This is India's smart border revolution, where we are using technology, algorithms, and various other aspects even to promote ease of doing business. So based on various movement of vehicles, the entry and exit vehicles, we are moving on to this system. On the other hand, we are focusing on more funding on border infrastructure. For example, the Border Roads Organization is always 24/7, 365 days a year, focused on building and rebuilding and improving the border roads of our country. If you have gone to some tourist areas, you can actually recollect, right, that this road was constructed by bro, right? Your bro looks after you. These are all the tags you see in the hilly areas. Also, finally, the Coastal Security Scheme is also launched, wherein we are actually focusing on the marine support program also, mainly on the coastal borders. So this is what we are doing as a whole. Now, right now, what the main outcome of this conference was, this is where we are trying to move from guarding the borders to governing the borders. Now, this kind of clauses and phrases you should use in your mains answers. Firstly, we have to stop looking at all of the borders isolated from each other, right? We have to talk about the borders which are actually connected, and also each and every border regions of our country will need different approaches. Also, we need whole of society approach. For example, we need the military personnel, we need the paramilitary personnel, we need the local villages, we also need the business operations, we need the local government approach. So this is where we need whole of society approach security too, because at the end, when we give more livelihood to the local people and involve them in the border management aspect, so we can have better data, better intelligence from the locals also. When we talk about intelligence, it is also about financial intelligence. So that is where the Financial Intelligence Unit, India, ED, NIA, FATF, all should be gathering more data. They should be using AI and analytics to filter out the sources, the Hawala channels, all those financial transactions. And finally, when we talk about the technology dimensions, we have to move towards AI surveillance, satellite imagery, smart fencing, all of those things that we have talked about. And finally, we also have to address the concerns that this amount of technology is actually costly. Also, sometimes privacy can be impacted. Mainly, there can be various local innocent people labeled as terrorists. So those things also we have to take care of, right? And at the end, we also have to focus on this demography mission, which was also launched by the government of India to solve the issue of illegal migration. And finally, we have a practice question for all of you. Please do let me know what is the answer in the comments. Now we will be moving on to the mains valuation section. So guys, in the mains valuation section today, we have 3 important articles. Now here, first one is from Indian Express explained page, where recently Supreme Court has set up 4 new benches to actually solve the issue of pending cases in the country. Now the data that is given from the National Judicial Data Grid is telling that we have almost 1 lakh pending case at the Supreme Court level. Some of the cases stretches more than 30 years, and this is where we understand that the pending cases, when we talk about the civil and the criminal cases, they are actually the highest even in the district and the subordinate cases, right? So this means that this is one concern, and if case is pending for 30 years, that is a bigger concern. So to write about the various issues in judiciary, there is one big issue of pendency of cases. So that is why right now Supreme Court has set up 4 special benches, 2 bench for sorting out the civil matters and 2 for sorting out the criminal matters only on Tuesdays to Thursdays. So this means that the Supreme Court is taking cognizance of this matter to reduce the pending cases, and this is not the first time that the Supreme Court is doing this. In your answers, if you are writing solutions to this pendency of cases, do also mention the efforts of former CGI U Lalit, who actually gave distinct time slots for the pending cases, and also former CGI DY Chandrachud initiative, that is SC Judicare project, to actually resolve those pending cases, setting up special Lok Adalat week and also special benches. So these are all the initiatives that you can quote in your answers to get those extra value addition marks, and these actually go a long way. The next topic is based on road safety. Firstly, look at the data regarding the rising amount of road accidents in the last few years, right? And also if you look at the various amounts of accidents, most of the accidents are actually due to road accidents. And it is also a shameful fact, according to this editorial in the Indian Express, that India records more road deaths than any other country, despite having a smaller share of global vehicles. According to the author, it is actually violation of our right to life under Article 21. And here, there are 2 and 3 more important value addition materials. Firstly, the Supreme Court case of S. Raja Shikaran versus Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court actually highlighted 4 E's, which are actually the biggest problem of road safety. Firstly, engineering. That means most of the Indian highways, for example, only receive around 35 to 40% funding. Next come weak enforcement of road safety laws, weak amount of awareness and education, and low amount of emergency care. Also, here the main aspect is the suggestions that the author is giving to you for better road safety. So do not forget to use in your mains answers. Firstly, Road Safety Coordination Council should be set up as a constitutional body, just like the GST Council, so that the matters of road safety are taken to the utmost, because every life lost is actually a loss for the country. The next initiative that he is trying to propose is having the need to amend the 7th schedule to bring roads actually under the broader purview of the parliament of our country, and hence the name parliament, not fate, must shape road safety by setting up district road safety committees. So this will be at the district level and will be spearheaded by the district magistrate, who will be taking responsibility of mitigating this kind of incidents. Now, the final mains value addition section is actually based on gender wealth inequality because of the recent report of World Inequality Report 2026 and United Nations Counting What Counts paper. So here it is reported that globally women earn 61% of what men earn per working hour. Also, when unpaid work is included, such as care at home or being a housewife, women's share falls to 32% of men's earning. Women capture just 1/4 of the total labor income worldwide. Also, if you can look into the regional female labor income shares, that is 16%, which is the lowest in the Middle East and North Africa, followed by South and Southeast Asia, wherein we also have our country here, and 40% in Europe and North America. So that means that women persistently have received lower income than men everywhere. So all of these data are extremely important, guys, for any answers that would you write in GS2, right, and even in GS1 related to women and the various amounts of vulnerable sections of the population. Now here, what the author is arguing is that even these reports have failed to count in what is the need for capital ownership for women, because here we are only talking about income. Income is different from capital ownership. Income is different from wealth. Income means salary, wealth means property, wealth means various assets such as gold and various things such as stocks. So it is where we have to talk about not only about income security of women, but about wealth security too, where wealth security is directly proportionally linked with women's well-being, productivity and livelihood, for which the future generations also can live better. And finally, when we talk about India as a case study, 86% of women in India work in the informal sector. So very low social security benefits, right? Talk about the condition of the household help that you see everywhere around you. Do they have any income security or social security? No, right? Also, women own land in only 12 to 16% of the rural land holding. So they also do not have properties. So this is exactly what we are talking about gender wealth inequality. So this was all for the mains validation section. Now we will move quickly to the prelims pointers, where the first article is actually on a recent meeting. Now in this meeting, our finance minister was there, and various public sector banks and their MDs, CEOs were present at the meeting, where they mainly discussed about the need for India to have higher foreign currency reserves. And these reserves better come from a reliable source, that are the NRIs who are living abroad. So the main idea is that NRIs would actually come with their savings in dollars that they would invest or say deposit in our banks, and that amount of money can be used for the economy for good purposes. So firstly, let us understand, what do you mean by foreign currency reserves? Now imagine a scenario where India has $0 or zero foreign currency. India only has rupees. Now with that, do you think that India can buy foreign crude oil or fighter jets or semiconductor chips, or take loans from abroad, or have various investors or say investments in the country? Because investments generally happen in dollars or in foreign currencies, right? So this means that international trade do not run on our domestic currencies. they actually run in foreign currencies such as dollar, pound, renminbi, which are actually mostly used. So that is exactly why, just like the wallet that you have, right? India also has a wallet. India's wallets consist of what? India's wallets consist of various currencies such as mainly dollars, right? Then we have pound, renminbi, and all of those currencies of those countries with whom India trades a lot, right? For example, India earns a lot of money from exports, and that is why we earn a lot of dollar. We earn a lot of money from the foreign investment, remittances, where our own friends and relatives abroad send us money in dollars, right? If you are lucky to have a friend like that, you can let me know. Also, when we have various foreign borrowings and NRI deposits, for example, there can be various Indians who would like to save their money in Indian bank, right? So this is where we get the dollars from. And when we talk about the entire amount of currencies that India has, or in this case RBI has, this is known as foreign exchange reserves. So as of now, we have around $674.2 billion. So this is actually one of the forex reserve components, that is the foreign currency assets. Apart from that, foreign exchange reserves of RBI also consist of gold, IMF, SDR, and the reserve transposition in the IMF. So these four constitutes the forex reserves. But even if you look at the data in the recent times, since 2023-24 onwards, if you see, the green component, that is the foreign currency component, it is declining over a period of time. It is being taken place by mainly gold. Now, why is this scenario being taken place, that our foreign reserves, mainly the currency, is getting down? Because mainly of the West Asia conflict. This is making the crude oil imports very expensive. This is where we have to spend more dollars right now. And also, we have seen how recently most of the foreign investors from the country are taking away their investments from the country, right? This is also leading to a decline in the supply of dollars in the country. And finally, in the recent times, RBI also sold dollars right now to stop the rupee depreciation. Right now, you have seen rupee almost touch 100 recently. So to stop that depreciation, RBI also sold a lot of dollars from its own wallet, and that is why you see the dollar reserves are declining. So this is where you see right now the main idea behind RBI scheme is to attract more dollars from various sources, and one of the sources are the NRIs, which are actually having a lot of dollars in them. So this is where the foreign currency non-resident bank account comes into picture. So generally we have three kinds of bank account for the NRIs, or for various people who want to actually deposit money in Indian banks. So firstly, we have non-resident external. So here the main purpose is to park your foreign earnings in India in Indian rupee. Then we have the non-resident ordinary. This is where income earned inside India, such as rent, pension, is actually kept in INR, right? And finally, we have the FCNRB, that is the foreign currency non-resident, where the foreign earnings that you earn abroad, that can be kept in dollars or in any foreign currency that you want. It need not be converted into Indian rupees. Now this is actually very attractive. Why? Because if are actually in the US and you are witnessing that the rupee is depreciating, and rupee has always have depreciated against dollar. So if you convert dollar to rupee, you will lose value because rupee is depreciating. So definitely it makes more sense to keep your money stored in dollars only. So this is why the rupee depreciation risk is not there. So definitely the NRIs with huge amount of money, they would like to keep the money in dollars, right? And the principal amount and the interest that they would get back after a few amount of time, if they keep money in this account, so that also will be given in dollars. So this is exactly what the RBI is trying to enhance. RBI is trying to increase the interest rates. If the NRIs would keep money in Indian bank for a long period of time, they would have a higher interest rate. And what the RBI has announced is actually a dollar rupee swap facility. Now this is actually for the banks. Now the main process starts like this. For example, the NRI comes and keeps the money in dollars in, for example, say HDFC Bank. Now the HDFC Bank will have huge dollar assets, right? They will actually have huge dollars with them from the NRIs. Now you know the overall country right now is facing this crisis of lack of foreign currencies. So what the RBI is telling, that RBI is telling the HDFC and the various banks that give the money to me, give the dollars to me, and in return I am giving you the rupee. Right? So in the meantime, RBI will be using the dollars to meet the various external obligations, such as meeting the crude oil payments, import-export payments, which has actually increased a lot. And in return, the banks will actually get working money, so that this money can be given as loans to customers at a cheaper interest rate. So actually here, NRIs are getting benefit of actually depreciation risk-free investments. Banks are getting liquidity, and RBI is getting dollars. So everyone is actually winning here. And this is where we want more foreign currency inflows. This means that we want more NRIs to come into India, right? And that is why they are actually doing that from Singapore, from Gulf countries, from US. Right now, this news is actually telling that more NRIs are coming into India and depositing the money in dollars, which is actually boosting our forex reserves and improving our balance of payments. In cases of heavy imports at some month, we can actually use these dollars to pay back, and in return the RBI actually can pay back the dollars in various amounts to the bank themselves. So this will actually solve our external sector volatility that we are seeing right now. So this is what the topic was. At the end, in the comment section, you let me know a very important and interesting question, that why is RBI using a swap window with the banks like this, instead of simply raising the interest rate to attract more investment from abroad? This is why we have also followed this in the PYQs also and in the previous analyst discussions also. Let me know the answer in the comments below. Now we'll moving on to the next one, where we will look into the recent data from the civil registration system, about what the data tells about and what are also the issues all about. Now here, firstly, we have to ask a question. How does the government of India actually know how many people are born and die every single year? We know that we have the census, right? But the census is conducted every 10 years. On the other hand, we also have the sample registration system, where the government of India authorities and the data collectors, they actually have estimates. They do not have real-time data. They actually go to various villages, towns, they actually ask questions, and they estimate that, okay, in this village, this many people can have be born or can have died, right? Because it is not possible for them to go to every house and ask every kind of people those kind of questions. Also, the National Family Health Survey and the HMIS is mainly talking about the infant mortality rates, the total fertility rates. This is also based on loose estimates and hospital-based data, which is also based on statistical estimates. So, the civil registration system is actually that system which enables the state governments to register each and every death and each and every birth in real time. So in essence, what this means, that the levels of registration of births and deaths are actually much more accurately reflected in this kind of system, where recently, according to 2024 report, we have almost achieved universal civil registration, where the hospitals in India or the various clinics in India are actually registering the birth and the death rates to 91.1 and 99.4%, with this level of accuracy, so that most of the births and the deaths are actually being recorded properly. Now, can anyone also let me know why we have a gap of around 0.3% between the births and the death rates? Let me see how analytical all of us are. Now, this civil registration system, this is actually based on one law, Registration of Births and Deaths 1969, which actually came into operation in 1970, which was also amended in 2023. Now, in 2023, the amendment introduced one national digital birth and death database. This means that this is a digital database which is giving us a real-time monitoring of the population of our country. where right now birth certificate has become a very important document for what? School admission, Aadhaar, passport, driving license, and various other government documents, right? And also, if you can understand, according to the amendment right now, the reporting of birth and death is actually the responsibility of the medical officer at the hospitals, both private and government. In case of any home birth, it is actually responsibility on the eldest member of the house. And whatever it is the case, birth or death, every registration must be done within 21 days, because every other property documents, welfare documents, and all those things are based on birth and death certificates, right? So if there is one person who is actually getting the benefits of a ration card scheme, food distribution scheme, so this is where, you know, this accuracy of the documents must be maintained, right? And this is where we have seen that over a period of time we have actually achieved a higher accuracy of these registration rates because of this digital portal and this 2023 amendment. Now, why is this registration so important? Consider the case of this COVID pandemic, when there were actually lots of cases of deaths. So in real time, if the government, or say if you were the district magistrate and you want to actually have various vaccination drives or various monitoring drives here to actually understand which areas are more impacted by the COVID pandemic, you would need accurate real-time data. So this is what this CRS was all about. Also, when we talk about the real-time demography as to what is the fertility estimation, mortality estimation, sex ratio at birth, population growth, disease surveillance, heat wave related death also, pollution related deaths, seasonal death, pandemic response, everything right now can be accessed with this data. So this is exactly why we have to understand right now, why did registration improve over a period of time. Firstly, right now India is moving towards more institutional delivery of children rather than home delivery because of various government schemes such as Janani Suraksha Yojana, Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram, right? Now, also, birth certificate has become extremely valuable at your schools, at your passport office, and various other important institutions. Also, as a whole, the healthcare scenario in the country is improving due to the digital portal. You know, the medical officers have the onus to report the births and the death rates. After the same, when we talk about the healthcare, Ayushman Bharat has been one important program which is also spreading the initiative. Also, the need for death certificate, for property documents, for any kind of welfare government scheme, this is also one of the more important aspects. And lastly, due to the 2023 amendment, digitization actually helped a lot. Now you actually can see from this figure that there are some states which perform better because of various reasons, not only for one reason. Maybe some states are better in literacy, maybe some states are actually better when it came to administrative efficiency in registering the birth rates, maybe some states have better digital infrastructure. For example, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Goa actually achieved universal birth registration by early 2000s itself. Right? So this is why there are some states which are different, and this is why we also have to understand that this registration should improve. This means that there are some regional differences. Also, there are some areas and hospitals which report delayed registration beyond 21 days. Also, when we talk about under registration, mainly of infant death, look at this very surprising fact. In urban India, 84% infant deaths has been registered, but in rural area, only 15.8%. So is this possible? This is not possible, right? Definitely there is some under-reporting here, under-registering here. Also, the cause of death is not mentioned along with the data that is gone into the system. And that is why this makes this not a perfect data. Why? Because the medical certification of cause of death is not mentioned. This is what the author is also suggesting to mention that. And finally, whenever we have the various deaths in the country, this is verified via the sample registration system. But we have already seen that this is actually based on estimates rather than on actual real ground reality. So that is why we need more timely registration, better medical certification like the cause of death, and finally we also need to have internal migration registration system too, to also look about what are the trends of migration in the country. Now we will be moving on to the next one, where we will look at a very important government portal known as UMANG Portal and why there are some issues recently with it. Firstly, when we talk about the UMANG app, imagine it as the Government of India government scheme marketplace, because on this app, from pension to education to utilities to health to agriculture to various other services such as PAN ID, income tax, or even passport or driving licenses, everything you can access using this super app by the Government of India. It is actually part of the Digital India program launched in 2017, where it is actually conceptualized by the Ministry of Information and Technology. It is administered by the National E-Governance Division, and it is under the implementation of the Digital India Corporation. So firstly, you have to clear that these are the various authorities who are actually administering the app right now. So definitely, if there are some issues right now, they are to be blamed and they are to be held responsible. So firstly, understand that here both the center and the state government initiatives are there, where recently, according to various researchers, there have been detected various vulnerabilities. Now understand this one very simple thing. Vulnerabilities means that there are some issues with the basic operation of the app. Now this you cannot see on the homepage or on the government scheme section. This is actually hidden in the coding of the app, right? That means that the architecture or the coding itself had various weaknesses. Weaknesses like the system design. Now this means that, for example, for various organizations such as EPFO, or if you want to avail of the LPG cylinders or take help of any Aadhaar details, right? We have one unique account number, and for every ID you have a password, right? Now, are the researchers who did this study telling that the Aadhaar ecosystem was hacked? No, Aadhaar ecosystem was not hacked. But for example, if we have the Aadhaar ecosystem having a health insurance scheme on this particular UMANG portal. Now this health insurance scheme is also accessed by a private hospital's data. So the private hospital's database does not have strong security measures. For example, the private hospital actually keeps the unique account number plus the password as plain text. For example, if the password is 12345, right? The hospital's database will store the password as 12345 only, not convert into something such as hashtag or say A or Z. I mean, for the same password, you can encrypt it as something else, as some other symbol. This is actually what we know as strong encryption. While encryption was there, because according to the Aadhaar Act 2016, you need to have encryption. Encryption was there, but encryption was very weak. The various other authorities, they kept the data in a very careless manner so that the data can easily be leaked. The application program interface or the API, which serves as the intermediate between the government and those hospitals or those private agencies, right? The API also has been leaked. The code is not that strong. And this is exactly what the researchers highlighted it. Now, what about the government response? Actually, the researchers informed the CERTIN, which is actually one of the most important cyber security hubs in the country, also the ministry. Now, the ministry responded that we already have a rate limiting measure. What does rate limiting means? This means that if there is a government website and if there are, this number of people, 1 lakh people who is wanting to access that website, not everyone will have the access at once. For example, maybe 100 people will have access at once, then the next 100, then the next 1000 maybe. So this is how limitation is actually done based on the audience of the website. Right? So this means that the government is telling that, okay, we have limited this website so that less amount of hackers can actually enter, and on a case-to-case basis, we can also scan and monitor this 100 and 1000 people at once, right? But also the government has told that, okay, we have taken the portal offline for migration, for better upgrades, right? And at the other hand, the researchers are telling that the fixes are not adequate because the government is taking corrective measures. preventive measures, encryption they have added. They have also strengthened the API log. They are also doing the continuous monitoring. But at the end of the day, the hackers, they are also smart. They are right now using mainly AI tools. Now here, the government of India is also telling that right now, we are actually talking about securing Mythos and various other local AI platforms. This means that these are cyber security AI platforms. So this means that this can actually automatically detect these threats and the vulnerabilities and try to patch them. So let us see what the government will do. This is one government measure that they have taken. And for our examination, all these important terms such as rate limiting, encryption, and various aspects such as plain text and why the hack was done, in which manner, these can be asked as a question to all of you. So be very clear with these concepts before moving on to the next article, where this last article is talking about the rise in inflation to 4.4% and why this is a worrisome trend right now for the central bank, that is the RBI. Firstly, prices change over time. This is where we get the concept of inflation, where inflation is actually the persistent rise in general price levels of various commonly used goods and services in the country by the consumers. That is actually known as the Consumer's Price Index. When we do at the wholesale level, that is the Wholesale Price Index. But right now, that the government will gradually phase out the Wholesale Price Index. Today only the government will also launch the Producer's Price Index, which will be covered in the tomorrow's Analyst too. Now, firstly, when we talk about inflation right now, retail inflation, this is actually on the rise right now. Now, retail inflation is the cost of living indicator, which is actually calculated by the National Statistics Office under the MOSPI. Now, right now, the base year of this CPI is 2024, which was changed from 2012, because the economy has changed a lot from 2012, and we need a year to compare our present prices from. So that is actually the concept of the base year. And right now, since the economy has changed a lot from 2012, we use a lot of digital services and a lot of other services. That is why the base year recently also has been changed. Right now, imagine that economy is like a car, right? We have the car engine, which actually heats up a lot. That is actually the case of inflation. And whenever the car engine heats up a lot, whenever the economy heats up a lot, the driver, that is the RBI, has to take action. And that is exactly why we have a term known as Goldilocks inflation. This is a safe level of inflation. That is the 4 ± 2 target. This is the target which the Monetary Policy Committee of the RBI tries to adhere to via inflation targeting. This is actually achieved by using the liquidity adjustment facility, wherein we have the repo rate, reverse repo rate, the SDF, right? So these are all the tools that we have. This is how we control the inflation. Right now, we see a condition of a cost push inflation. This is very different from a demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is where we have seen that the demand for goods and services increase a lot. But cost push inflation is generally happening due to weak monsoon right now, El Nino scare, fertilizer cost and crude oil rising due to the West Asian crisis which is happening. And that is why if you see restaurants, petrol, and various fossil fuels, this is why the inflation is increasing all of a sudden. Mainly, if you can see in the transportation sector, inflation has risen by around 4.31%. And this is exactly why the food and beverages section is also increasing at a lot because of the weak monsoon. So you see, inflation overall in India is on an increasing trend. Now, we have 4 PYQs from prelims from 2022. This is a very easy question. In India, which of the following is responsible for maintaining price stability for controlling inflation? We have seen that it is actually our Monetary Policy Committee under the Reserve Bank of India, right? So here the answer will be D. Now here, I want all of you to solve these questions from 2022, 2021, and 2021 again. So this is where you let me know what are the answers in the comments below. And finally, we wrap up the session. I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attend the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again for a very interesting session again. All the best and best of luck. Thank you.